y'all? It's your girl, Ariza, licensed clinical social worker with over a decade of experience helping people pass the LMSW and LCSW exam. So whether you're a first timer or repeat test taker, this is the place to get the tools, the strategies, and the mindset you need so you can level up and pass this exam. So let's jump into it. In case you didn't know, you can know all the things you can and have all the content when it comes to taking the exam. But if you answer the right question in the wrong order, it's still the wrong answer. Or better yet, let me say, the right answer in the wrong order is still the wrong answer. So the goal of this training is to help you decode the difference between first, best, and next questions. I want to show you how to think like the test writers, and I want to teach you a reputable system so you can stop second guessing yourself. I have people reach out to me all the time for coaching and emailing me and giving me their story about how they didn't pass the exam and they were so close and all these things, to understand that they came so close. So I know they have the content, but maybe it's a strategy and they don't have a repeatable system that they used. So sometimes they found themselves second guessing. So I'm going to go over today the truth no one tells you. These questions are not just about clinical skill. They're about sequence, about safety, and of course, strategy. So we're going to call them the 3 S's. So just think about this when you're taking your next question or you're doing your next exam or you're practicing or doing a quiz. If a supervisor was watching you, what's the first thing they'd want you to do? Just think about it. If your supervisor was watching you, what would be the first thing they want you to do? All right, let me jump in and start sharing my screen so we can go through this mini lesson. If you have any questions, of course, hit me up in the comment section, but it's even better if you're in my community and you can tap in with me one-on-one and just kind of help me help you so we can get more people licensed. All right, so now I'm sharing my screen. We're gonna jump in and we're gonna talk about first definitions that stick. Because you gotta understand what the question is asking you when it says first, best, next, and of course I'm gonna throw in some most. But a first question, you're at the start of an intervention, a start of an action. This is where you use safety, stabilization, assessment, all of those great, wonderful things. I'm not sure if my video has posted yet, but I have a video talking about the 3 stages of treatment and how you have the first phase, the second phase, and the third phase. And there's certain things that take place in those different phases. So when you're taking the exam, if you just think about what phase you're in, you can see how the answers correspond with that stage. We'll jump into that a little bit later. That's just a little tidbit and a nugget to kind of help you also when it comes to these strategies. So if the question is best, you're thinking the most effective. What is more ethically sound in the choices that are provided? So in this stage, you're looking at treatment planning, decision making. These are just the things that are in your mind when you're looking at that question. And then, of course, the infamous next questions. Clearly, that is a logical progression. You do something first, then you do something next. So pretty much when I think of a next question, it's after something has been completed. So it's after you've likely assessed the client. It's after you've likely built some rapport. It's after you've validated some feelings and all of that kind of stuff. It's pretty much something has been done first, and now you're on to the next. So let's just break it down and think about it. First, you're assessing. Best, you do what works. Next, you keep the process going. Hopefully that makes sense. And of course, we're going to throw down some questions so you can make sure that you're really understanding this and getting it. So some common pitfalls that take place and happen is that sometimes we choose the most clinical answer instead of what is in the right order. And then other times we skip safety altogether. We just jump in and we want to intervene. We're not even assessing for any safety stuff. And then a lot of times we read too fast and we miss key context. When I do my coaching with my people, whoever signs up for individual coaching or in a group coaching, a lot of times I have them read the question aloud. And in the process of reading the question aloud, I see sometimes people misread words or they replace words with other words that might look similar. And that will definitely change the whole answer and the whole question. So you really, really, really have to think about it. Take your time and read through it and make sure that you're looking at each word and you have an understanding of what it is before you jump in and answer, because it could definitely trick you up. And then also thinking like a helper and not a test taker. Of course, we're in this helping profession and we're trying to help everybody. But when it comes to this test, We're measuring how much we know and how we're able to apply the things in our helping profession. So don't always just think like the helper, think like a test taker. So the first, best, and next flow framework. This is the test survival flow. First, you're going to stop. Is there a risk? Is there a safety issue? Is there a need for assessment? These are the things you're thinking. And if it's a best question, what's most effective after we've already gathered some information? Like, what is the best thing we do now? What is the most effective? What is the most ethical? These are the things you're thinking about. And then next, the first step has been done. So what's the next logical or ethical move? So let's look at some first questions. First, I want you to look at safety. Are there any suicidal, homicidal, or any abuse taking place? Then you want to look and see, has an assessment been done? We want to clarify, explore. We want to ask questions. We want to really assess and see what's taking place and what's going on. And then stabilize. Are there any medical or any housing needs? But yes, are there any medical or any housing needs? That's what's left off. And then mandated actions. Are we doing any reporting? Are there any APS report, Adult Protective Service, any CPS, Child Protective Services? Does anyone need to be hospitalized? What's taking place? Does law officials need to be notified about something? So when in doubt, you always start with information gathering or addressing safety. So if you have a question, you're just like, I don't know what the answer is. Think, do I have the information, and is there anything going on with safety? That's how you would kind of tackle those questions. All right, when it's best questions, this is what you're looking for. You're looking for what is effective. So we're looking at the evidence-based or those goal-oriented questions. We're looking at what's ethical. We're protecting the client autonomy and also protecting their confidentiality, which is huge. Confidentiality questions come up all the time. Dual relationship questions come up all the time. We also have self-determination questions come up all the time. So these are the things that you're looking for. And then client-centered, we want to be collaborative. We want to be empowering. That is who we are and what we do in the field of social work. And then when it comes to boundaries, we want to avoid disclosing information about ourselves and too much stuff to have the client involved in. And we also want to be mindful of us giving advice. Our job is not to give advice. Our job is to help them process and figure out what decisions to make and how to go forth with making it. So the test is asking, what's the most solid social work move here? Whenever you think of the question best, and I'm going to put those most questions in that best category too, because that's what you're thinking, like what is the best, what is the most solid thing that you're doing when you're moving forward? Those questions are very, very similar. Best and most, and of course first and next, because it's the logic flow of things. All right, so when there's next questions, this is what you look for. Continuation, what naturally follows? So after you've assessed the client, what naturally takes place? After you started building rapport and connecting with them in the beginning stage and engaging, what naturally happens next? You don't want to jump over things and start jumping to the most complex intervention or what's going to be considered harder or more extreme before we do the baby steps and the things before that. So you want to follow the flow. And then when it comes to ethical timing, we're not jumping steps at all. We're not jumping steps. We're actually timing ourselves to make sure we're doing the right thing at the right time. And then for intervention progression, you want to make sure that you're supporting the client, providing treatment, referring out. That's it. You don't refer to a client before you figure out what's going on and how you can better support them. So ask yourself, what would happen next in session if a prior step was already done? So if I assess the client during the first session, or I started connecting and getting to know them in the first session, what would logically happen next when I'm looking at those answer choices? So here's a quick practice question. Think about it, and then we'll go through the answer. So you have a 10-year-old, and they report being hit with the belt and locked in their room. What is the social worker's first response? Are we referring the client to a support group? I guess for other children who have been beat. Or are we calling the parents like, hey, Timmy told me that you hit him with a belt and locked him in the room? Or are we filing a report with CPS? Or are we conducting a full family assessment? Let's get everyone in here and assess and see what's going on here. Clearly, it sticks out and it's automatic because it's safety first. This child has said they've been hit with a belt, locked in a room. We don't even have to think and pass. We just collecting the $200, pass and go, and contacting CPS right away, because we know in that given situation that safety is paramount. So we need to make sure that that client is safe and that they are able to get the help that they absolutely need so they can feel protected. So that is something that you really, really, really want to be mindful of when you're working with a client. How are we protecting them? Here's another one. This is the best question. So a client with depression has been consistently missing work and they feel hopeless. What is the best intervention? Have depression, missing work, feeling hopeless. What do? Do we explore the client's childhood? Well, I know you've been missing work and I know you have some things going on. How was your childhood? Literally, I tell people to do this. When you're answering the questions, sometimes you got to say it to yourself just to hear how it sounds, to let you know whether this is something that you should actually do. All right? Do we say, oh my goodness, I'm going to offer you an antidepressant prescription so that way you can get the help you need? Or I'm going to say, you know what? I know you suffer with depression. You have a lot going on. You're starting to have some increased symptoms. Let's kind of make sure we contract for safety. Let's see, what would you do if you start feeling really sad or having thoughts of hurting yourself or blah, 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 blah. What will we do? Or do we initiate a CBT treatment plan? Let's kind of get to the root of things. What's going on with the client? What's happening? What's taking place? Let's use some CBT techniques and get into the mind and kind of shift and change some of the thought processes. What will we be doing? We're going to develop a safety plan here. And the reason we're developing a safety plan here is because the client has depression and they've been missing a lot of work. We don't know what's going on and why they're missing the work, but we need to make sure that they're safe and we need to make sure that they're adhering to their needs. So if this client is having suicidal thoughts, homicidal thoughts, maybe it's a thought and they don't have a plan, but either way, we need to develop a contract to make sure that they are contracting for safety if the symptoms get worse and they start feeling a certain way. All right, quick practice question on next. So after client shares a trauma history and establishes safety, what should the social worker do next? Love this question, guys, because listen to it. After, it's already telling us that we have learned about the client's trauma history, we've established some kind of safety. What would you do next? What logically follows? Do we hear about the trauma, establish safety, and then refer them to a psychiatrist? Do we hear about the trauma, establish safety, and begin trauma-informed therapy? Do we hear about the trauma, establish safety, and confront the client's denial? Or do we hear the client's trauma history, establish safety, and then focus on the client's family system? Clearly, guys, we're going to begin trauma-informed therapy. It's no reason if the client has shared their trauma history, they established some type of safety, that we're going to jump and say you need to go see a psychiatrist. We have not intervened or did anything first to decide whether we need to refer them out because what we're doing is not working. And then also confronting their denial. Is nothing in this scenario that talks about denial, and there's nothing in this scenario that talks about the client family system. We know they had childhood trauma, but we don't even know how the family dynamics are at this point. We need to kind of start working and building on some type of therapeutic model and treatment to help them get to the next level. So here's some power tips. Read over every word. Sometimes the questions seem tricky, and it might be tricky for a reason, because when you're taking the ASWB exam, there's a right answer and there's some plausible answers. So what means is that it makes you pause and say, this could be right. Because what the exam is trying to figure out is that, are you thinking like an average everyday social worker, or are you thinking like a licensed social worker, someone that has some experience, somebody that has something in the game, like they put in some work, they've done some things, they've established some skills, some knowledge, they're ethically sound. Like these are the things that are expected of you at this point in the game. Whether you're taking the LMSW, the LCSW, you have to understand that the knowledge level they expect you to have is here. Are you studying for the LCSW or LMSW exam? Don't waste time on the wrong prep. Try my test prep program for free with a full module that gives you the real strategies, the real practice, and real results. Plus, you get access to my exclusive test prep community where you'll find support, study material, and accountability. No risk, no stress, just results. Click the link in the bio so you can get ready to win with the winning team. Is here. not here. So in your answers, you might automatically go to the answer that the everyday social worker, everyday person would answer, but with more ethical knowledge and more skill set and more experience, you would know that there's something else that you should be doing instead of this. That is basically what the test is trying to hear. They're trying to wean out the everyday average person with their social work thinking to someone that thinks at a higher tier and is more knowledgeable. All right, and you want to use that POE, baby, that process of elimination. Sometimes things are just out of whack and don't make sense. And I threw some questions in there and they're a little easier. Yes, I understand that they're easier and you're like, oh my God, the exam questions are not like that. My goal is to help you be able to understand and pinpoint. Doesn't matter how easy a question is or how hard a question is. If you can point out certain things, you're going to be fine because you're looking for the same thing and you're developing a system. So when the question is given to you and it has 10 sentences versus 2, it still has the same content in there. They're asking the same thing and you have to be able to jump and understand and do that. Jump into the question and kind of understand what to do and how to handle it next. So please, guys, don't worry about questions being tricky and not similar. I do have some tests that I offer on my website. Is actually once you attach to the community, you go in the learning tab, and I do have 2 tests in there that I sell as a standalone for those who just maybe don't need a course, maybe don't need coaching, but just want more practice with questions. I do have 2 sets in there. They're 85 question. Then you take a little break and there's another 85 questions, and there's one for the LMSW and one for the LCSW. So just letting you know that is offered and it is something that's there for you if you feel like, hey, I just need questions. That's a good route to go. So also remember, when in doubt, you want to assess, you want to acknowledge, you want to refer, and then you want to treat. I can't say this any easier, guys. So it is the art of things. That's what we're going to call it. The art of things. Assess, acknowledge, refer, and treat. And some people say, well, before I assess them, I want to acknowledge their feelings. If the question is asking you that, you can use your knowledge base. I don't want to say common sense because I know common sense is not common to everyone. But if you're looking at the question and it has something in there where it's saying acknowledge the client's feeling, assess for da-da-da. Clearly, if the client comes in the office and they're in distress and they feel like the world is, everybody's against them and they don't know how to do, we're not going to jump in and assess them. We're going to acknowledge they're feeling a certain way. And then we will move on to assessing them and going from there. So those 2 things can go interchangeably. It's just kind of let you know. That's why I said the art of things, because you have the A, the R, the T. So if it's acknowledging or assessing, you can kind of play with what's happening in the question to determine it. If it says, what do you do first? We know what we do first. Those are one of the 2 things that can kind of go hand in hand. But we know we're doing those things before we decide to refer and before we decide to intervene or treat. So don't get tricked up and feel like everything I teach you or other YouTubers teach you or other courses teach you, like, oh my God, well, you said assess comes before acknowledge and everybody gets stuck with that. I want you to focus on how can you apply it. And if you understand that these are the things that happen in the first stage, assess and acknowledge, they can be used depending on the question. We don't know every question that's going to be asked of you. But if you understand what those terms mean, you can look at the logical flow of things. If it's the first thing you're doing or it's the next thing, you kind of think, what would I do first? Am I going to acknowledge or assess? And it really depends on the question and how the question is worded. So please, guys, don't try to take everything that you're learning and apply it to every situation like it's the one thing that's going to help you get over the edge. These are all tools and strategies that work and they're going to help you succeed. But if you know the social work helping process, if you went back and watched that video, that is going to help you succeed when you're taking a question because you're understanding the different stages. If you looked at the group dynamics, if you have a question on groups, it's going to give you the different stages and things that happen in a group. If you have a question on death and dying, it's going to tell you the different stages that people go through during the grieving process. If it gives you a question on, I don't know, like needs of a client and trying to meet them, you're looking at Maslow. So everything comes together full circle if you just know how to apply it and when. And that is what I'm showing you here. You have to understand the logic of things. What do you do first? What do you do next? What is the most effective? What is the best option? That is the way that you have to think about these questions. And also, you want to practice under time conditions using this system. So I do not recommend, if you're taking the test next week, and this is your first time looking at the training, you trying to swallow this in and apply it on every question on the exam. Unless you have enough time to practice and apply it to practice exams, mock exams, and any question, anything that you're using, any type of system that you're using that's going to give you lots of questions to help you move forward. So, again, you want to use the first, best, and next decision flow sheet exclusively when you're doing practice questions. Not, again, see, it says practice questions, not necessarily in the actual exam unless you've practiced. So remember, practice makes better. Practice gives you more confidence. Practice gives you more stamina. It does all of these things when it comes to the test day. So when it's game day and you're in there, you already know how you can maneuver through those questions, how quickly you do, because you practice. You increase your stamina by doing 15 questions a day, then moving to 25, then moving to 50, all of these things. And of course, this is a special training that I actually provided to those in my community and those in my course. So some of this stuff doesn't pertain to it. It's actually allowing you to download this and print it out and just use it every day into the exam and all that good stuff. So that is it. You don't need to copy all that if you're looking at it on YouTube. But remember, you don't fail these exams because you don't care. You fail them because no one taught you how to think like a clinical strategist. Now you know, now you're going to win, and that is what I'm here for. So never feel like it's too late, guys. I have people reaching out saying, hey, I'm testing in a week, I'm testing in 3 days, I just found you, or I'm testing next month. I don't know. We can do a one-on-one session. We can do a quick, I do private tutoring. It have to be in the course, but jump into one of the actual coaching calls. If you know you have a few days ahead, sometimes we throw some extra calls in there to make sure we're helping people prepare and for game day. And then I also have a lot of standalone stuff. Like I said, we have the test, the mock tests and exams that you can practice on. I actually have a training that I've been working on, and it's kind of like the game day playbook. It's like what you need to do 7 days before the exam. Because I realize a lot of you guys are waiting to the last minute to cram in and studying, and that is not always helpful. So I want you guys to understand a system and a way of doing things so you can be successful, you can be productive, and you can win and get what you need to get done. So I really appreciate you guys sticking through this whole video. I know sometimes us as social workers, our attention span is not the greatest, but you guys made it through. You did it. So I'm wishing you the absolute best. I also have the FBN Flow cheat sheet. It says course only, but I'm showing it to my YouTube people because you guys have helped me reach over 1,000 subscribers in record time, and your girl is hype. So I'm like, look, you know what? I got to give my YouTubers some of the sauce too. So again, you're only going to be able to look at it on here. So take a screenshot, write it down, do whatever you do. If you're in the course, you have this whole training that's provided to you so you can print it off and use it and kind of help you out with the guide. Just remember, first, safety assessment, stabilization. Best, effective, ethical, empowering. Next, continuation, logical progression. These are the keys. These are the keys to the test them. That's what we're going to call it. So in order to test and be successful and do it, you got to understand. So here are some clues. If you hear the word explore, if you hear the word clarify, if you hear the word assess, those are the things you do first. If you hear initiate, if you hear use CBT, remember we intervening now, baby. This is what you do best. And then if it says something like continue, refer, begin treatment, we already know that we've done something first, like the assessment or clarified or explore feelings. Now we're trying to continue and move forward. So I hope this training was really helpful. Drop it in the comment section and say, yo, you helped me. Or, oh my God, it's a game changer. Or I'm ready. Say something so I can know that you're ready to move forward and do what you do. Here's another little FBN practice word cheat sheet. And I have a little flow cheat sheet. As you can see, I'm just showing you all the stuff. I even got a logical map. So you start here. If there's a risk or safety, do you do this first? No. Do you do this? A whole little flow chart. And these are some power verbs that I know are really, really helpful. This is going to help you memorize certain things in certain categories. So like if it's a first question, these are all the things you do first. If it's best, these are the type of words. If it's next, as you can see, we getting it in, providing you with all the things you need. Make sure you don't jump into treatment before assessing. You never ignore safety risk or mandated reporting. Don't confuse next with best. But you might confuse best with most because those are more similar. And you want to skip past exploring and clarifying because it sounds too passive. So remember that. These are some things that people do. I've said you don't want to. I meant to say these are the things people do that you want to be mindful of. If it says explore or clarify, it sounds passive, but sometimes it can be what's needed in that question. So just be mindful, guys, and don't jump into these common traps. Again, Make sure you like, subscribe, tell a friend, share it with everybody because I want everybody to win. And I'm so excited because 2025, 2026, 2027, all the years to come, this channel is going to produce so many social workers that the ASWB is going to come up to me like, what are you doing? Because y'all are killing it. And that's what I want to see. Until the next one, be blessed. And I hope you guys enjoy this training and I hope it was hella helpful.